Let's run through this. So obviously the white is hot. The black area right here is grass, and it's obviously much cooler than the white. And as we can see, we have a person running into the woods, and we could see the disturbance in the ground, and we could see the heat from their footprints going into the wooded area. So we're going to fast forward here, and one thing I kind of wanted to share is I always found this so interesting with thermal imaging is trees are alive, right? And even if it's 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you can still see a heat signature of a tree just based on what that tree is doing. It's I just think it's kind of cool. So a couple of things to take note here. The sun is setting on the opposite side of us, I think, in this video. No, I think it's this video. So it's getting dark. The sun's setting on the other side, and the other side of the trees are lit up from the heat from the day. But what's interesting is this guy right here. You see this heat signature. That could be an animal on a tree. It could be a squirrel. It could be a raccoon. It could be a disease in the tree, and the tree is trying to heal itself. These are very interesting to see. But anyway, this is our target. This is what we're focusing on. So we're going to go through here, and we can see him obviously going through the woods, trying to navigate his way. And these are all things that I guess they're learned behaviors. We really don't think about it anymore. At least I don't, because I've logged hundreds of hours in thermal imaging mode. And when I noticed this person going through the woods, hold on here. We notice this. If you see, they kind of slow down and they're kind of taking really big steps, right? So the fact that they're taking really big steps tells me that they're not in an open area. They're having difficulty navigating that region, so it's going to slow them down, right? That's the time that you relay that information to your teams that they're currently bogged down in some thorns or thickets, right? You don't want to make false statements, pardon me, because you don't know if they're thorns by thermal imaging. However, you can clearly communicate to the ground team that this person is having an issue, right? They're slowing down. So this is really interesting right here. So as you can see to the left of the screen, the sun has set in this direction, and the trees are still illuminated with heat on that side. Sometimes it's easy to get lost in your images here. So in this one, this frame is a good example because this is our person, this itty bitty little white dot. And this right here is actually a tree stump that's chopped in half. But if you notice, one half of it is illuminated. Now, this could mean a lot of different things. There could be an animal living inside there. There could be a beehive. There could be wasps, whatever lives inside tree stumps. It could be on one side of this chopped tree. It could be illuminated from the sun from previously, the past 30 minutes or hour or so. And that's what's causing it to be so white. But the fact that it's just so hot with comparison to the human being who's currently walking, they're almost the same brightness. If not, this might be a little more. So this would lead me to believe that something is possibly living inside this tree. Now, here's the interesting part. Normally, if the tree is completely hollowed out and there's animals living inside this tree, the entire tree will be illuminated and not just one half. So just little things like this kind of spark interest. When you're out doing search and rescue, I highly recommend that you post-process your videos if you can, if it's not part of a chain of custody and you have a chance to review your video. Go back through and look for these little details and these little aha moments, because even though they seem trivial, what's happening is you're slowly training your eyeball to look at the world through a different lens. And the more effective, the more practice you get of looking at these images and understanding what you're seeing in the thermal world, the more effective you will be as a thermal imaging pilot, either in the fire or the POPO service. So The other thing I want to note here too is sometimes we don't necessarily need topographical maps to understand what's going on with the terrain. So in this black, or sorry, white hot mode, oh, pardon me, we can see a lot of variations in the blackness of the screen. So this looks like a little ravine along here that the person is walking along. And we see that these areas are substantially more black. They contain more blackness than this region right here. So this would lead me to believe that this area right here is a raised area. This would be the bank of possibly a creek, and this would possibly be some type of raised area inside the creek. And the creek looks like it goes and winds along down this way, right? So we're going to watch here and see what happens. So we see the person obviously climbing up, right? And they were having some difficulty getting up that hillside. So in this case, I would say that this is a ravine, possibly an old creek. I don't see a lot of rocks in here. Rocks normally retain heat. So this may be like a little what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little gully, or man, it starts with a D. I just can't think of the word. Like a divot, right? Let's just call it that. That's not the word I'm looking for, but anyway. So this is a great example of looking for suspects who have ran into the woods. Obviously, if you're right behind them, we see here that it's kind of near fall time. A lot of the leaves are gone, and this is an ideal condition to leverage thermal imaging. All right, so let's go to another video here. Oh, I'm sorry for yawning. I was live streaming for like 19 hours to raise money. So, real quick, speaking of raising money, we have to raise another $1,600 by Sunday tomorrow by midnight. So you can swing by afrs.us/learn. And there you can make a tax-deductible donation. You can purchase some raffle tickets if you're in the state of Ohio, or you could pick up some merch. So let's move on to the next one here. All right, let's go to lost child. So let me lay out the scenario here. So this is a family property. The child's been missing for several hours. The child commonly plays in the woods, and it's unlike them to not come home at a preset time. In this case, the parents called the child's phone. There was no answer, so obviously the parents became very, very concerned. The parents did not want to include the police department, so they went out, or they didn't want to include emergency services, let's say. So they went out, they walked around the woods, they called for his name, and there was no response. So now, in this scenario, the parents have summoned public safety personnel, and the public safety personnel have arrived. And the first responders on scene, the incident commander, looked at the size of the woods, did a scene size up and an assessment, and based on his experience and training, and the fact that he took the time to learn about drones and their effectiveness, he did not call in neighboring jurisdictions in a huge team. He went ahead and put some on standby, but he did not call them into the scene. And now he has summoned the drone pilot. So the drone pilot arrived in a very short amount of time. And in this scenario, from the moment of launch to the moment of locating the injured child was 6 minutes. In this case, the scenario was the child was climbing a tree. He fell, and he's now unconscious, breathing, but unconscious. And this is something that's commonly seen in boys, right? When we look at boys and girls, traditionally boys are a little more risky. They take more chances. They like climbing things. They like danger. They like that thrill. And in this case, this young man fell from a tree, and he's not answering commands. So let's see what the drone pilot does here. This video is edited, but this was shortly after the launch. And we can see the difference between the thermal imaging and the visual camera. So This is probably early fall time frame. I want to say probably around September. So let's jump on into it here. Let me let me back this guy up. All right. So real quick, first thing I want to do is I want to compare the thermal imaging to the visual camera. So if your agency does not leverage shared emergency services with respect to drones, or you're using a drone without a thermal camera, um, yeah, it's you're just kind of wasting your time. I mean, it's good for an eye in the sky with respect to public events, but for search and rescue, if you don't have thermal imaging, I wouldn't even waste your time. If you have a 110 thermal imager, I still wouldn't waste your time. They're junk, they're useless. You need a 640 by 512 or better, right? Our drones run a 640 by 512 with a digital enhancement up to 1080p. And there are times when I show these videos where we zoom in and the thermal imaging gets blown out, right? And it doesn't look pretty. But from a search and rescue standpoint, I don't care if it looks pretty. I just need to zoom in exactly on that target and line up my crosshairs. So let's continue. All right. So I'm sure you see the victim. Uh, if you don't see the victim, all right, there we go. So now we're finally zooming in, right? So I want to show the comparison between this visual screen, right, and the boy who's fallen from this tree. Now I know where to look, so I can see in this visual picture where the boy is. It's very, very difficult. And this is from a drone at about 150, 200 feet. So doing this from a helicopter with visual and no thermal, once again, you're just kind of wasting your time. You're at a much higher altitude, and without thermal imaging, yeah, you're just burning up resources and not really accomplishing a lot. All right, so we made a mistake on the circle on this image. The victim is actually right here, right? So there's a slight alignment that's off on the camera a little bit. So this tree that we're looking at right here, I believe, is actually this tree. No, I'm sorry, I'm backwards. This tree right here, I think, is this tree. There you go. Yeah. And this diagonal tree is this diagonal tree. All right. Anyway, let's continue. All right. So once we zoom in on the subject, on the person of interest, we're going to line up our crosshairs as close as we can to that person. Now, we want to make sure that our crosshairs are not pointing at a tree. We want to make sure our crosshairs are as close to the victim as possible. And then we want to paint them with a laser. Now, the laser is going to shoot a laser beam and it's going to bounce back, and it's going to give us a representation of where that victim is on Earth, and it's going to allow us to convert that to a Google Map pin. Now, when you're shooting a laser, there's several things that you need to consider. One, the light has to bounce back. If you're shooting at a solid black object, you're not going to get good bounce back. If you're shooting at a reflective object, your bounce back could be scattered. If you're shooting at an object and you end up hitting the tree in front of them that's 20, 30 feet in front of them, your reflected signal is going to give you the coordinates of where the tree is and not necessarily where the victim is, right? So take the time, make sure that your laser is aimed properly, either on the victim or near the victim, right? And try and avoid the eyes. It is an infrared laser. I don't think it's going to damage the eyes, but with all lasers, try and avoid eyeballs. Don't be shooting somebody in the eyes. All right. So, obviously the victim's been found. And this is also another great representation of why drones are so useful with comparison to helicopters. So I want you to picture a helicopter, I don't know, 1,000 feet up, whatever their lowest altitude is. I have no idea what that is for normal search and rescue. But if that helicopter is not equipped with thermal, I want you to picture being 1,000 feet up from this scene with a human eyeball. Even with binoculars, you're probably only going to get this scale of view, right? Because the more magnification you get on binoculars and the fact that the helicopter is sitting there vibrating, your picture is probably going to be all over the place. So this is just such a great use for drones because you can operate at low altitudes. You can get in there, you can zap them with a laser, you can do all the nitty gritty work that needs to be done to pinpoint their location and get that victim to safety. So I want to back up here real quick and I want to talk about the laser again. Okay, so this is a great scenario. So right here, right, we see the victim, we got our drone, and let's say we're excited, we found them, right? This is a high profile target. We're going to get press coverage, right? Our drone program's going to shoot through the roof, and the first thing we want to do is shoot a laser at this person and get the coordinates, right? So if you shoot that laser from this angle, the odds are very, very likely you're going to get this tree, right? And you're going to send the coordinates to the ground team of that tree. Now, as we pan, I want you to note the distance from this tree to the victim. All right, so we're panning. We're panning a little bit more. I'm going to zoom out here in a second. Come on. Oh, it ended. Hold on, let me get back here real quick and let me stop it. Come on. There was something I noticed just before we went in on that Zoom. Let me get back here. And I want to tell you why it's so important to paint the victim with a laser. Okay, let's see if we can see it here. Okay, I think we're just about there. I'm sorry, guys. Give me just a moment. This is a value. Just hang in there. All right, almost there. Okay, so I think we're there. All right, so previously the drone was like over in this angle. We were viewing the victim from over here. Like this is where our drone was. If we would have shot that laser towards the victim and it would have bounced off the tree and given us the coordinates of the tree and not the coordinates of the victim. Now I want you to vision about what your ground team is going to face, right? Because to us from the pilot, we're like, oh man, look at all this empty area. They could just walk right through there. No, they can't. Look at this. There's thorns and thickets and all this stuff like all over the place. This is not smooth grass. It's just a smooth thermal. But let's say that we gave them the coordinates of this tree. Look at the distance of this tree to that person. And we got a creek in the path. So if you misshoot your laser and you get a bounce back from this tree and you give them the coordinates of this tree, your entire ground team is going to go to this location, right? Because it's going to get them there within probably 3 to 6 feet. And he's, man, probably 50, I would guess 50, 60 feet away from that tree, right? Now they're going to have to cross this ravine or this creek area. It's just make sure that your laser is near the victim. Make sure you get a good reading. A lot of this brush and stuff like this, please take the time. Make sure your laser kind of gets through all that junk and actually gets a good bounce back, right? All right. So that covers thermal with respect to search and rescue. So let's grab another thermal example. And this time we're going to talk about pop, right? And some people call it pop, some people call it soda. No, we're going to talk about pop because when you're looking at thermal imaging, the two examples we've done so far has been humans, right? And humans are very, very simple. But when you're looking for parts of a human, and not parts that have become detached, but parts of a human that are barely poking out, or you're looking for animals, let's say it's a service animal, let's say it's a high profile pet, right? Things change a little bit. And I want to bring you up a thermal image of a pop, right? And I think this is a pretty good video. I think this is one. So give me this moment here. All right. So I'm not going to go into a lot of pet rescue and things like that. What I want to cover is I want to cover the pop and the differences in thermal images that you're going to see. So, all right, let's go. Let's go right here. So, okay. So these are two examples. So this is a tall grass area. These are two deer out in the field, and we don't have a very clearly defined pop, right? And what I mean by a pop is I want you to picture a photograph being out of focus versus a photograph that's in focus. I want you to picture a white ball that has blurry edges versus a white ball that has hard edges, right? So when we look at these guys, I know they're deer based on their placing and based on their geographical location, right? But the fact that they're blurry would tell me that this may not be a good target. But the fact that they're blurry is just because they're so far away, right? Now, here we have a picture of a campground, and I want to talk about the pop, right? So here we have thermal signatures of a truck and I think a camper. Oh, pardon me. And we see two nice pops. They're not real blurry. They're very, very defined in comparison to this guy, right? So these pops, it's very warm, it's very hot, it's very defined. Now, even though these are not really clear, they are indicating a much larger heat source. So I like to call these my supernovas. So a supernova to me, it's like a star that's blurry. So this tells me it's probably not a mammal, right? It's probably some type of man-made heat source. And in this case, it was. I think this was either a campfire or a truck that had been running. And I think this is some kind of heat signature from inside of the RV camper type thing. But neither one of those were humans. Or mammals. These all heat signatures, all blurry, right? No interest to me. They could be possible targets, but right to me, after flying hundreds and hundreds of hours and missions, it doesn't really pop out to me. So this one right here is a great example. Let me back up here for just a second. So here we hit a walker near a tree line. Okay, I want to zoom in on this. Okay. So what sparked my interest was these heat signatures. Now, I sort of took into consideration the blurriness and I didn't. And reason being is because I see all this ground clutter, right? So as I zoom in on this, right, I see a walker. And what's normally with a walker? A human being, right? So I'm looking around and I don't see it visually, but I see this path area, this beaten down area. And then above there, I see a very large heat signature, which is more than likely the human that's associated with that walker. But in this case, I wasn't looking for a human. I was looking for a dog, right? So I'm going to concentrate on dogs. So I'm going to fast forward here. And I want to show you exactly what, to me, what a good clean heat signature looks like. All right, let me back out of here a little bit. Come on. A little bit more. Sorry, guys. Okay. Almost there. Okay, that took forever. All right. So we're going to zoom in on this guy. We're doing a thermal camera calibration here. This is an automatic calibration that happened. And if you notice, my entire image just changed, and it was due to the temperature out. Okay, we got a human over here walking. Okay, So I want to back out on this heat signature, and I want you to see how clear this guy is. Okay. So when I'm looking at the ground, I've got two heat signatures here. And for whatever reason, my eye did not see this one, but it's all this one, right? These to me are very clearly defined. This is more clearly defined than this guy, but when I was at the field, I didn't see that guy at first. Now look at it. I've got this very, very white, bright thermal image. And to me, it's very defined. It's just very concentrated. And even though it's a little blurry, I'm zoomed in some, but to me, this is a clear thermal, right? So I zoom in on this guy. Oh, pardon me. I'm really excited because I think this is my target, and it's not. It's cat, right? So I zoom back out. I see my other heat signature, right? And this tells me a lot without me even thinking about it. I've got this heat signature here that I was just on, and now I've got this new one. I'm looking for a dog that's approximately 50 pounds. I just had a cat that's maybe 6 pounds. Now we see the huge temperature difference, right? So now I'm super, super excited about this. And I want to show you the benefits of thermal here. So I'm zooming in, right? And I haven't marked anything. Nothing is highlighted. And I've got a clearly defined heat signature. I mean, it's just bam, right on. And now I want you to look at this screen, and I'm going to give you a minute, and I want you to tell me where the dog is. Keep looking. I'll stop that hum here in just a minute. All right, I'm back. All right. So now I'm gonna move forward, and I want you to see where this dog is. Hold on. I'm gonna give you one more minute to see if you can see it before we highlight it. We got a clearly defined heat signature here. The cameras are almost lined up. See if you can see that dog on the right-hand side. All right, here we go. There it is. Crazy, isn't it? With the color scheme of that dog in the current landscape. Sorry. Probably would have never found that dog if it wasn't for thermal. So if you can't make it out, right here's the head. This is the face of the dog. There's the nose, the snout this way. Coming down the back of the dog, laying down, tail area, rear leg, torso, chest, front paws right here. Right. Now here's the interesting part. We have a very, very small bush here. Well, what I would consider a small bush. And look at the heat signature. We are not getting the whole heat signature of the dog. We're just getting a piece of it. But the piece of it we're getting is more than likely the center mass of this dog that's kind of peeking through a little bit here, and here. But it's absolutely amazing how defined this heat signature is. Now, if you are out searching for an animal or you're searching for a human being, one of the problems that you're going to face is not all of the mammal is going to be visible all the time. So if you're out looking for a human being and you think, oh, I'm only looking for a heat signature shaped in the form of a human being, you could possibly miss a lot of viable targets. Now, on the flip side, if you zoom in on every heat target you find, you're going to delay your ability to possibly find the human. So it's a catch-22. If you have multiple drone pilots and it's a very urgent search and rescue, what I would do is I would send one pilot up and say, hey, your primary job is to search for a human target. My primary job is to search every heat signature, right? So you got one pilot who's doing a rapid search. He's only looking for human-shaped heat signatures, and he's moving, right? He's moving from area to area, and that's all he's doing. You or the other pilot, slow, steady, check every target, right? And in the fire world, that's like the difference between a primary search and a secondary search, right? There's the quick and dirty that we're only looking for certain things, and then there's a secondary search where we're going to find every little detail. So I'm going to pan around here, and I'm also going to talk about the benefits of a pan. So when you're doing a pan around a target, right, you're going to eventually find a hole. And that hole will give you a better view into that mammal. And sometimes I use my visual to do that. Sometimes I use the thermal to do that. So when you find a hole and you're lined up with it, your thermal may get brighter or it may get bigger, right? And when that happens, then I kind of zoom back in with my, pardon me, with my detailed zoom to get a better visualization of the target. The other gotcha, and this is a very difficult one for new pilots, is say, for example, you're out looking for little Sarah lost in the woods, right? And you have a description that she's wearing pink pants and a lavender shirt, and she has pretty little bows in her hair, right? The problem with that is when you're out searching, if you're new, you're going to be so hyped up to find this little girl that all of a sudden you're going to find this object and you're going to be like, oh, that's her. But it's a log, right? Or that's her. And it's some mound, right? So what happens is you start painting this picture in your head of what you're going to find. And then your brain starts processing these videos and the images, and it starts leading you to believe that the anomaly that you're seeing, this mirage, is actually the suspect, victim, or patient that you're looking for, right? So be very careful to kind of teach your brain to respond differently, right? And now here's another good example, right? We've got this dog. It's almost in full view, very little clutter behind it, but we're still not getting like this huge heat signature, right? And that's very, very odd. Why is this not shaped in the form of a dog? Well, it has a lot to do with the ambient temperatures outside, right? It was cold outside this day. And the longer a mammal is out in the cold, their body is going to start shunting, just like a human being does when they get too cold. So what's going to happen is your extremities are going to start shunting, and all the blood and heat is going to be concentrated to the core of the mammal. And I believe that's what's happening here with this dog, is why we're not seeing a full shape of a dog. We're only seeing the center portions of the dog. All right, so let's continue out here a little bit. So in this case, I got a good visual with the dog. I wanted to make sure we had identifying marks, which was the collar of the dog. And I'm going to fast forward here because the dog gets spooked and ends up leaving. But I want to show you something kind of cool with respect to this heat signature. Come on. I think we're almost there. Hold on. Okay, here we go. All right, so here's the cool part. Pay attention, kids. All right, so here we got the dog, right? It's getting spooked. It's getting ready to get up. And the same thing could happen with a human being that's been bedded down somewhere for a long period of time. I want you to see what happens here. All right, so what's going on? Look at this. I've got a dog that's possibly 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Look at the whiteness of this dog. And now I've got this circle here on the ground that's bigger than the original heat signature that we saw when we found the dog, and it's glowing hot. So I want you to think about winter clothing, right? You don't wear just one layer for winter clothing, you wear multiple layers. And the pockets of air that exist within your clothing create like this insulation. So if you've ever noticed dogs when they go to bed down, they will do the little circle and they pat down all the vegetation. Now, no matter what time of year it is, there's always a little bit of moisture in the vegetation. So now we have this scenario where 103 degrees Fahrenheit approximately has been sitting in the spot for undetermined amount of time. Could have been 30 minutes, could have been 5 hours. We have no idea. But now all this heat is concentrated in this area. And once the animal moves away from it, now we've got a heat signature. Now that this heat signature will hang out for a long time, depending on the ambient temperatures, how long the mammal was there, what type of bedding it is. The same thing will happen with human beings during search and rescue if they've created some type of bedding to shield themselves from the earth, kind of sucking the heat out of their body, right? So when they get up and move, you're going to see the same type of stuff. So give me just a moment here. I got a whole bunch of text messages coming in. I just need to make sure it's not something major or important. Oh man, what's going on? All right, hold on. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So sorry about that. So this is a lingering heat signature, and you will see this with almost all mammals where they've been bedded down, right? And this can kind of clutter up your scene when you're evaluating stuff, because now we got multiple targets in the area, right? We have an assistant on the ground search team to try and recover the dog. We're going to have another heat signature coming into this area, which is the owner of the dog. We have the dog itself, and now we have the original heat signature of where the dog was bedded down at. And as the pilot, you need to keep track of all of these things, and you need to remember where these are, because as you rotate the drone, especially in the case of a fleeing suspect or a fleeing animal, your orientation is going to change. So you need to keep your reference of landmarks of where these anomalies are, like this guy, so you don't get lost and end up going back over the same area and calling this out as a possible target, right? Because that would be bad. All right, I think I have another example for you. Actually, I think I've got 3 more. So real quick, let's take a quick break, and I'm going to put in a shameless plug for us, right? So AFRS is a 501c3 nonprofit group. We provide emergency robotic response in Southern Ohio. Our current territory includes over 10 Ohio counties and nearly 1 million Ohioans. All of our pilots are certified firefighters, and we solely operate off the generous funding and gratuitous nature of people like you. And we can only be successful if you donate. So swing by our website, make a tax-deductible donation. If you're in Ohio, you can pick up some raffle tickets, or you can pick yourself up some cool merch. But I will tell you, we got a big financial crunch deadline tomorrow. So we really, really need your donation. So swing by afrs.us/learn. That's afrs.us/learn. And send us some moolah. And we will love that very much, because we're really in a bind. Okay, so let's continue with the thermal stuff. So I got a couple more examples for you, and I'm going to end it out on a good fire with respect to fireground operations. So the next one I want to cover is a urban area. Pardon me. So this is a great example of we have a shopping center here, and there's been a report of a person in the back of the shopping area. It's near closing time, and we don't quite know what's going on, right? We don't know if this is, I don't know, a stalker. We don't know if it's a burglar. We don't know if it's a person with mental illness. We don't know if it's somebody suffering from low blood sugar. We have no idea what's going on with this report of a creepy person behind this building. So in this case, say you got some coppers who are showing up and, they're heightened because it's a very dark environment. They've got a flashlight. And even though a flashlight allows them to see, it also degrades your night vision. And it's just a bad situation where you may end up in a scenario with two human beings frightening each other, either by accident or on purpose, right? So when we talk about situational awareness from a peace officer standpoint, or maybe there's an EMS team getting ready to roll into this area and there's no copper available, right? Maybe this is a known low blood sugar thing. And just because they have low blood sugar doesn't mean it's safe to go in there. So having this situational awareness of where this person is huge, right? And so let's run through this, and I'm going to show you the differences between regular vision from a drone and thermal vision. All right, so here we go with regular vision. Bam! Look at that. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So after flying hundreds and hundreds of hours, I already have a target. As soon as I flew over top this shopping center and hung a left, bam, I had a target almost instantly. And here you'll see I centered my camera up on the target and I'm looking at it and I'm evaluating it. I'm thinking, I'm processing stuff, right? I'm like a walking, talking AI engine that loves to eat peanut butter, right? So here I am looking at this thermal image and I end up dismissing it. I made note of it. I may circle around a bit, but I'm not happy with that target, right? And why? Because it's blurry to me, right? It doesn't have the pop. It doesn't have the soda factor, right? So I hung out there for a little while. I looked at it. I may come back to it, but I want to do a pan, right? And the entire time I'm doing this pan, I'm like, it's staying blurry. It's not getting clear. I don't see the pop. It doesn't have the soda factor, right? It's not the Dr. Pepper that I want. Now, this is one thing that really sparked my interest. I want you to watch this. I want you to watch this very closely. Keep your eye on this dot, right? Because I started to dismiss it and it moves, right? So as I'm panning, it disappears. Watch it. Boom, right there. Do you see it? I'm going to play it one more time. So I got this thermal image inside this brush. Watching, boom. Do you see it? How it just rapidly disappeared? So now that tree line really has my interest. I don't know if it's an animal. I don't know if somebody was standing up in the brush watching the drone. I don't know if they heard it. I don't know what's going on. Right? So I'm panning, I'm looking, I'm trying to find a hole, and bam, there it is. Right there. Right? So let's watch that again. Let's watch this again. And I want to tell you the importance of the pop. Right? And this is just kind of a thing that I do that I've discovered over hundreds of hours of flying thermal. And it's something that I use on a regular basis, right? So here we go. We're flying over the building. We turn left. Instantly, my eye picks something up. I'm centering it on the screen. I'm pausing. I'm thinking. I'm waiting. I'm just about ready to dismiss it, but I don't really want to dismiss it yet. So I start to do my pan. And why do I do the pan? Because I want to see between the trees. I want to see between the leaves, right? And I'm not zoomed in yet because I'm just trying to take it all in. Because if this is a bad guy and if it's a suspect and I'm zooming in and they take off in jet, they're going to very quickly go out of frame and I'm not going to see them. So that's why I'm pulled out at this wide angle, right? And I'm looking, wait for it. Bam. And it moved, and it wasn't of my rotation. It moved. And that really, really sparked my interest. Right? So I just kept panning. I'm scanning, right? And there it is, right there, right? So it's my belief that whatever was here moved down to here. Now, this does have a pop to me, right? It's not the pop I would like, but it still has a pop. And I always like to try and equate this to like metal detector use, right? So if you've ever ran a metal detector, you got to know your machine. You got to know what the sounds are, right? Because if you're just scanning to be scanning, you're going to be digging everything up, right? But if you want silver or you want gold, you're going to train your ears to listen for a particular tone, a particular grunt, a particular blip, right? And in time, you end up training your brain to do that. Thermal imaging is very, very similar, right? So now I want to look at some other things in the image, right? Because we already found the suspect, but I want to look at some other things in the image. And if you have the opportunity to go through your thermal imaging post process, I highly recommend that you do. Now, there could be some legal concerns over this if it's part of chain of custody or something like that. But if you have access to the data, do it, right? Go through your thermal, because what you're going to do is you're going to go home, you're off duty, right? You're going to crack open a beer, you're just chilling, and you're going to have some training time while you're sitting in the recliner having a nice cold beer, right? And crap, life doesn't get any better than that, right? So let's start going through this image and let's start looking at stuff. So right here, right, we got an area. We got all this stuff back here. It looks like I might have some boxes, some deep fryers. I got like this table up under here. If somebody was under there, we'd obviously see a heat signature. This almost reminds me of some type of office table. At first, I thought it was like a medical stretcher, but then when I looked at the wheels and the legs and how they're positioned, I very quickly ruled that out. So this is just a good example to familiarize yourself with some of the clutter or things that you're going to see in the field. Now, this is a great example of post-processing education and training your eye to see certain things. So when I saw this, I thought to myself, why are there 3 benches in a row just sitting here? And initially, when I look at these, I think these are benches. Why are there benches? But as I look at them closer, I'm like, why is the bench seat so narrow compared to the back? Right. And then I'm like, okay, let me go back through the video because my eye wasn't trained there when I first went through this thermal image. So let me go back through and let me see exactly what those were. Right. So I'm going back through, and there's a huge heat signature under them too, right? Which really sparks my interest. So I'm looking, and now I got my answer. Right. So this is a great, great example of why it's so good to post-process your videos and go back through here for training purposes, right? So now I know that they're picnic tables, right? That's what they have. And now I'm wondering, why is it there's such a huge heat signature under these compared to the rest of this parking lot area, right? So when I look at these, I'm like, wow, what are picnic tables constructed out of? We've got wood, we got metal, we got aluminum, we got all this stuff, right? So my belief are these picnic tables are probably metal and they are retaining heat and radiating it out under the table, right? Now, we have this garage here, and it's very, very difficult to see where the pedestrian door is and where the garage door is. Obviously, it's not on this side, right? And if we go back over here, it's not here either. So common sense would tell me it's not back here because they're not going to be pulling stuff in. So it's got to be in the front, right? So let's run through this and let's see where the doors are on this shed or barn region, right? We still can't really see them on the thermal. Can't see them. Can't see them. And here in just a moment, there we go, right? So now we can clearly see where the garage door is, and we can clearly see where the pedestrian door is, right? but during the pan, we would have never seen these. So let's go through a couple other details regarding this thermal image, and let's start training our eyes to see different things, right? So one of the things I want to cover is when we first pop back here, right? And these are things that I really don't think about anymore. They just kind of come to me because I've done this so many times. So let's take a look at this, right? So what is the importance of looking at this roadway? Well, there's a lot of things going on here. One, I do not see relief cracks, right? Where are relief cracks found? Relief cracks are commonly found in concrete. So this tells me that it's a black-topped driveway or a blacktop parking lot versus a concrete parking lot. So depending on your region and how your concrete is constructed, that can mean the difference of your cool down period on your roadways and your land surfaces, right? Based on the materials that are used, right? So that's going to make a huge, huge difference. Now, right here, I want you to see something else. So let me know when you can see what I'm seeing, right? We got the shed, we got some work vehicles. What else do you see? All right. So what I see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 4, 5, 6 vehicles were parked here earlier. Now, when I'm looking at the heat patterns in the parking lot and I'm seeing kind of what's going on, I would probably guesstimate, not estimate, guesstimate that vehicles may have been here 6 hours prior, I want to say. And that really depends on your region. It depends on the construction of the parking lot area, whether or not it's concrete, whether or not it's blacktop. And it also depends on the ambient temperature of that day. So here's a couple other things I want to show you too, real quick. So we saw the work vehicles there, but I want to get a better picture of these work vehicles, and I want to share some things with you. All right, so I'm going to stop it like right here, okay? And we're going to zoom in. All right, so I want you to take a look at these two work vehicles, right? So, pardon me, I'm getting over a respiratory infection. So when we look at these parked vehicles, one, they're both facing towards us, right? As they're facing towards us, I don't see any heat in the hoods. I don't see any heat in the grills, which tells me that these vehicles have not ran in a while, right? There's other indicators of whether or not these vehicles have been running. And this will be found more commonly on your electric vehicles because your electric vehicles not going to give off a heat signature in the engine compartment, right? So how do you tell if an electric vehicle has been running recently, right? I want you to look at the wheels, right? So there's a couple things that electric vehicles have. One, they have regenerative braking. So regenerative braking is a big electrical coil pack that's going to kind of short itself, and it's going to cause the magnets and stuff to slow the vehicle down. Now, sometimes those are located near the axle areas. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's like a traditional drive shaft, and the electrical unit will be up under the vehicle, right? In that case, you may not see it. However, in most vehicles, not all, but most vehicles, your brake rotors and pads and calipers are on the outside of the vehicle, right? And whenever they apply the brakes, it generates a crap ton of heat. That heat is going to be dissipated through the brake rotor as well as the rim that holds the tire for the vehicle. So in the case of a 100% fully electric EV vehicle, you can tell if it's been in motion recently, not necessarily running, but you could tell that it's been in motion by looking at the tires for heat signatures. And if you see a glow coming from near the center of that tire, then odds are that EV vehicle has been used recently. Now, I can't give you a time frame, but it will help you. So, last one I want to go through after a quick break is ground fire operations with a drone, and this is an island. Here it is. It's a very quick video, so we'll run through this real quick. So, quick shameless plug. So, we are a 501c3 nonprofit group, and we provide emergency drone response to Southern Ohio. Our current territory includes 10 Ohio counties, nearly 1 million Ohio citizens, and all of our pilots, all of our drone pilots are firefighters. Our background includes 23 plus years of IT coding experience in both government and private sector, as well as coding aerospace drones, and a lot of certifications from Homeland Security and cybersecurity, hacking, wireless hacking, and also drone operations, to include public safety drone operations, aeromedical drone operations, counter drone terrorism. And I was also overseas last year personally meeting with pilots who do some interesting things with drones. So let's go ahead and hop in to this clip right here. And this clip is a fire on an island. So one thing I want to point out with this island is there's not a lot of land predators on this island, right? Because it's in the middle of the water. So islands serve as a great refuge for migrating birds. So it's very important to preserve this piece of land for the benefit of migrating birds and other air animals, right? So we're going to zoom in on this. Okay, so I want you to see this fire. This fire looks so minor. I mean, we've got very light smoke. It's white, obviously. It's an organic fire. There's not a lot of man-made material in here. But what's interesting about this fire is we heard radio chatter the day prior about a fire on an island. So that leads me to believe that this fire had kind of been smoldering and waiting to go for well near 24 hours. And once the conditions were right, once the wind was right, this fire started to take off. And if it wasn't for this fire team, this fire could have quickly spread throughout this entire island, damaging precious resources that are used by migrating birds. And with an island this size, there was a high likelihood in the wind that day that this island could have caught fire and the embers would have made it over into these other sections of woods, and it would have been a much larger fire. So let's cover the use of thermal imaging here. So here we see the boats coming up. This boat right here is actually a fireboat. So they've got an onboard pump, and we have light smoke showing, right? So as this boat approaches, the cool thing about this type of wildfire, this type of brush fire, is this team has pretty much a unlimited amount of water to use. Now, they do have a limited amount of fuel to run the pump, but they have an unlimited amount of water. And when we look at land fires like this, they have a limited amount of water and they have a limited amount of fuel, right? So water conservation on brush or wildfire land fires is very, very important. And thermal drones play a huge role in water management and making sure that you get the water where it needs to go because you have a limited amount. So let's fast forward here. And we're going to see the role that thermal plays in this. So right now we're just doing white hot, right? Because we're stuck in that search and rescue mode that we're always in, because that's primarily what we do. That's most of our call outs is looking for mammals. So we're going to switch to color mode here, and I want you to see this. It's going to blow your mind. Bam. Okay. So let's go through this picture real quick. Obviously, red is hot, right? Now, I like to tell my wife that I'm hot, but I'm not red. All right. So let's zoom in here. So the fireboats here, they just approached, right? So they're getting their equipment ready. They're getting ready to battle this fire. And all they see is this light smoke. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is this hillside it's a very, very treacherous angle. So there's pros and cons to this prior to putting water on. So yeah, the hillside's on fire. And if you get a firefighter donned and all their equipment, they could go up to the top, right? They could take a side approach up to the top and fight through all these weeds and treacherous landscape to get up there, and they could shoot water from the top down, right? Because once water hits this hillside, it's all muddy and you're not going to get to the top, right? It's going to be very, very difficult. So here we see the fire. These are actually reflections. I mean, this is the heat of the boat. This is a reflection of the fire. But the fire itself is working its way up this hill, right? All the way up. And then when we zoom out here in a moment, now we really see the full picture of this, right? Now, this is a summer day, so we have to try and decipher between what is fire and what are really hot rocks that the sun's been beating down on all day. So here, very quickly, we see like a trail, right, going up here. And this trail could be a trail of fire, it could be a trail of rocks. And then we see another side fire over here, right? Because the likelihood of the sun getting through all this foliage to heat up a rock over here, just out of the blue, it's pretty slim, right? It's pretty slim. So we're on the shoreline and we're radioing to the team where they need to place their water, right? And now here we fast forward later, the fire team has the majority of the fire knocked down. Right here, we still have a hot spot right up front. Now, this could be embers or it could be a rock in the ground that's still glowing because of all the heat that they faced. We also see the water pump near the front of the vessel here that is also very hot. So we tried verbally describing to this firefighter where this fire was, and it just wasn't working, right? So we sent a Google Map pin of this exact location to their phone, and here you'll see the firefighters start to walk directly to where that fire is. Right. And here they're starting to walk directly up into the woods, right to where that fire is. And that's the beauty of having thermal drone imaging in a situation like this. And here's why this is so important with respect to fire teams. So say this was in a big city, right? You got a full-time paid fire staff. Not a big deal, right? If you don't get it all the first time, you're just going to get called out again. We're getting paid anyway, right? Now, let's look at a volunteer department, which is still 70% of the country. These men and women have taken time away from their family and their day to come out here and battle this fire. If they do not get all these embers the first time, it could possibly rekindle. An hour later, 3 hours later, 6 hours later, could be the next day. So I want you to picture these people having to get up and go to work at 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning. And now 11 p.m., the tones are going off again, and this stupid island is on fire again. So now they have to leave their home, go to the firehouse, get the truck, go out there, get the boat, you're talking at least 2 hours. And now by the time they get done, go home, shower, get in bed, you're talking almost 3 hours. They've lost 3 hours of sleep of their evening. They're probably getting home at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And now they got to get back up at 5 or 6 a.m. and go to their regular job. So having a drone out there to assist these teams is just absolutely vital. It just really, really is, right? So we're going to run through here. And here we see the fire team just putting copious amounts of water on it. They're pretty much just drenching the entire hillside. So that concludes our thermal aspect of things. And I hope you enjoyed this video and some of the examples, and I hope that it helps you in your drone efforts. And just remember, be safe out there. Be transparent, right? The last thing we want to do is be that butthead drone pilot that really turns people off of the drone industry. Because what you do, what I do, what our firefighters do will set the stage for the next drone pilot who goes out there, right? So love one another, be kind, be courteous, but be firm. And go have fun getting high. That's terrible. I don't mean that in a drug kind of way, but yeah, fly safe. And thanks for tuning in. And I'm going to take a break and I'll come back here and do another video on a drone topic. So before I close out, swing by our website, give a donation, afrs.us/learn. We have a huge financial deadline tomorrow. We got to make $1,600 before tomorrow. And if we don't, we have to sell one of our drones out of our fleet that is primarily used for school outreach, and we really don't want to do that. So please swing by afrs.us/learn. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.